Well, here's a little interesting story for you. This unit right here, 1st Rhode Island Regiment, was the very first black regiment to serve in U.S. military history. I mean, actually formed and served. That unit was made up of freedmen and slaves. How did it come about? Well, you had 3 guys sitting in the tent one night, and they go, look, man, we losing this. We losing. Flat out, we losing. We losing people because we got the colonists, and then we got Europe, and they shipping people over here faster. We need some more people. So one guy says, hey, well, I tell you what, how about we take and offer the slaves their freedom in exchange for fighting with them? We'll offer them money, we'll offer them their war pension. Hey, it's one way to get some bodies. You go, here, I like the idea, so bam, it happened. Well, as you know, the colonists went on, we won. But at the end of the war, there was not enough money to pay these men the pensions that they promised them. But guess what? Because some things are worth more than money, they continued to fight. They continued to serve. They continued to do their jobs despite not being able to be given what they were promised. Many of them were given their freedom, and then the freedom was taken back from them simply because of the color of their skin. Again, the 1st Rhode Island Regiment was also known as the Black Regiment. They became one of the greatest fighting forces of the Revolutionary War. They fought beside many. They were one of the most highly decorated units of the Revolutionary War, and one of George Washington's favorites. They're still celebrated today in the Northeast area. They're still very much celebrated to this day with military honors and awards. Hence the Buffalo Soldiers. Now, a lot of people believe that the Buffalo Soldiers actually fought during the Civil War. Not completely true. There are war-colored troops who did fight during the Civil War, but the Buffalo Soldiers were not created until 1866, and they were the very first peacetime all-black regiment created by Congress. They came out of Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Okay. They got their names from the Indians, because the Indians, of course, they had not seen an adversary that fought as they did, with the honor and the pride and the ferocity that these men had fought. And then too, they looked at them and they said they have the dark skin and the woolly hair, and reminded them of buffaloes. So hence the name, the Buffalo Soldier. Well, ironically, I thought about it. I have a couple of uncles that do look like buffaloes, so I thought it was ironic they would give them that name. Well, the name did stick, and although several African American regiments were raised during the Civil War to fall alongside alongside the 54th Mass, these were different. The Buffalo Soldiers, they were very powerful. They rarely lost a battle, rarely. They were a very big part of our Western expansion, but they were not commanded by black officers. They were commanded. I love this story. Women have fought beside men in the military for years, but they had to be disguised as men. Well, this particular young lady, Kathy Williams, joined the military in St. Louis. Told the man her name was Kathy Williams. He wrote down William Kathy Cook. She was a cook. Gave her an infantry uniform. She served in uniform as an infantryman for almost 2 years of her 3-year enlistment. Went to the doctor a number of times for various ailments, because she ended up getting out early because she had a medical retirement, I guess you could say. But in the time that she was in the military, never realized she was a woman. How does that work? You go to the doctor and the doctor don't know that you are not the sex that you say you are. How did they, she ended up retiring, and when she moved to Nebraska and she tried to get her pension or benefits, and they denied her for many years her benefits because her paperwork said William Kathy, not Kathy. But she's the first known woman to enlist in uniform. Although many have served, but like I say, they were disguised as men. Women did serve a big part, or have served a big part, since before the Revolutionary War in our war efforts, because they also served in roles of servitude throughout the many wars. Now, in the Spanish-American War, we lost a lot of people due to typhoid and yellow fever. And here's how this worked. They would recruit these young ladies to come and be nurses. And they told them, hey, look, yes, there's a lot of people dying from typhoid and yellow fever, but you won't. Because you won't catch it because your skin is thicker and it's black. So come on, come be a nurse. And they did it with pride, with distinction, with honor. And they were dying. And nobody knew that they were dying because they were segregated quarters. And or they would get through with their service, they would get sent back home and die from yellow fever or typhoid. Eleanor Roosevelt was a major supporter of the Tuskegee Airmen and was one reason why it finally got off the ground, no pun intended. The reason I say that is Eleanor went down to Tuskegee, hopped in an airplane with one of the black pilots, flew around with him, with the press corps there taking pictures. Now, how are you going to refute the First Lady of the United States? She said they can do it. Okay, well, here we go. And Eleanor, I do believe at some point carried more weight than her husband.
Mm-hmm. She was a force.
She was. So they said, fine, let's make it happen. Well, they wouldn't allow them to train with the white officers. So they had to build a separate airfield. They had to build, and they built an exact replica of that field in 6 months. This was the pilots, the service personnel, Corps of Engineers. They had to go and build a separate training facility. So the Tuskegee program sparked a large number of firsts for the Army, considering it still had some very strict racial segregation regulations. But here's what's funny now. You had to have flight surgeons, doctors, flight doctors. Well, they wouldn't allow the black surgeons to train with the white surgeons because, I mean, they had to touch the same blood and so on and so forth. So the black flight surgeons had to learn to be flight surgeons through the mail. Now, I understand University of Phoenix, which I still think is funny because, I mean, when you graduate from the University of Phoenix, how do you celebrate? You get up and walk across the keyboard? But doing it through the mail, that's a whole different issue. Correspondence through the mail to be a surgeon. But turns out they were some of the best flight surgeons out there. Basically, when people are faced with opposition, you find the way to overcome it if you really want to overcome it. After the first victory, there was many more to follow. The 99th and the 332nd Fighter Group were the only black air units that saw active combat in World War II. Now, a lot of people have seen the pictures of Berlin getting bombed, and you got all these, a whole sky full of bombers and everything. Well, the planes that flew escort for them were the Red Tails, was the Tuskegee Airmen. There was another unit that was supposed to fly the escort, but they did not show up in time to make the rendezvous. And even though this unit was they were at what they call bingo point, the point where they're supposed to turn around so that they can make it back home safely. They were not going to allow these bombers to go forward without protection. So many of them stayed with them and flew with them. This unit never lost a bomber. So many people have grandfathers or great uncles that flew on those bombers. The Tuskegee Airmen philosophy was, we got to make sure they get home safely to their families. They never lost a bomber. Units would request them to fly with them, to protect them, but ironically, would eat dinner with them. Well, we want you to come protect me, but I'm not going to break bread with you. But these men came and they did, and they flew with the honor and distinction and protected them as they were so ordered.